Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. I hope you're all doing very well today. So I don't really go to a whole lot of shows these days, but the last show I went to was really kind of a modern show, modern card show, and I was really taken aback by what I saw. A lot of autographed cards, just really too many. I actually do collect a lot of autographed cards of vintage players, vintage autographs, if you will. For me, autograph is really kind of something special, and kind of a memory, if you will, of that event or meeting your favorite ball player. And today, unfortunately, I think what's going on is that there's so many autographed cards out there being pulled from packs that are really meaningless. They're not really special for the collector who is going to really see the player. And really, what these cards are doing is they're taking away that event for the collector to see these ball players, and in some cases, the player is usually retired and they're autographing cards uh, well past their prime, if you will, who are doing this. And it used to be that you'd have guys like Mickey Mantle or Duke Snyder or Willie Mays who would go to, or Bob Feller is a perfect example of this. Those guys would go to card shows from like the 1970s or 1980s and 1990s, and it was a way for them to actually get more money to supplant their income from their pensions or Social Security. And unfortunately, those guys actually got in trouble with the Internal Revenue Service because they weren't reporting their income. And kind of a different story there, but it was actually a way for a lot of these older ball players to do that, and again to meet the fans. And Bob Feller was actually the first one to do this at card shows back in the 1970s, the early 1970s. I think he may have started around 1973 or so. And he'd actually go to city and town to town to do this and meet fans and have another fan base who may not have actually witnessed him pitch like myself. And so that's actually how I met Bob Feller, and I knew him for about maybe 10 years or so. And same with Johnny Pesky and Dom DiMaggio, Bobby Dorr, a lot of your lesser known names. And I actually think that it's your lesser known ball players who usually don't sign. Those are the guys that you might want to look for instead of your Ted Williams or maybe Jerry Cheevers or somebody else who signs quite a bit, like Bob Feller did. And so, again, those guys may be your more rare autographs, but they might not actually be worth a lot of money because it is again supply and demand or demand. I wouldn't really kind of want to go and get a Ted Williams autograph today or a Joe DiMaggio, and Joe DiMaggio signed quite a bit as well, and so they are out there. It's usually the guys who passed away prior to the collecting boom of the 1980s that you're not seeing a whole lot of autographs for. And so today, I wanted to kind of share with you a very interesting set. I actually just picked up this card not too long ago. I think it's kind of historic, and it happens to be this card right here. And now you're saying, hey, wait, aren't you a vintage guy? Yes, I am. But I'm also into historic sports cards, and for me, Pedro Martinez is probably one of the best pitchers that I ever saw, and he definitely blew away Roger Clemens as far as I remember. Like, because I did see Roger Clemens pitch on the Red Sox, but I also did see plenty of Pedro Martinez, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about him and this particular set. Now, this is a 1996 Leaf signature series, and I really wanted something from this set. I do remember when the set came out, in fact, and it caused quite a commotion when it did because it was the first pack, or yeah, it was the first pack that I remember that cost $10, and I think it cost actually a little bit more than that because what was happening was that you had dealers who were charging maybe double for what this pack was going for, and at the time, I just wrote down some of my notes here. There were 12 packs per box and 4 cards per pack, but you were guaranteed at least one autograph. It was something that I think really kind of bothered a lot of collectors and dealers as well, because it was, I think, the first set that I can remember that was strictly for collectors, and it was really advanced collectors. It wasn't for kids. And I found a few articles too that made the mainstream news, and that was like kind of there's a lot of articles actually about sports cards from the 1980s and 1990s as being cards as investments, right? So this definitely was a set for investment purposes and not for collectability's sake, I guess, if that makes any sense. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Pedro Martinez here. And again, I did see a lot of Pedro, and the funny thing about Pedro was that first off, he's a showman. Okay, he still is. But second off, a lot of his wins and losses were really kind of down to one run. So Pedro Martinez played from 1992 to 2009. In 1992 to 1993, he was with the Los Angeles Dodgers, and then he was with the Expos from 1994 to 1997, and then he signed a free agent contract with the Red Sox, and I think that's where he really kind of got his Hall of Fame career going. And he played with them from 1998 to 2004, and then with the Mets from 2005 to 2008, and then with the Phillies in 2009. He has a 219 100 win loss record, a 2.95 ERA, and 3,154 strikeouts. He is an 8-time All Star from 1996 to 2000, and then 2002, 2005, and 2006. And he won a World Series with the Red Sox after 86-year drought. And that was a really interesting World Series in 2004. In fact, I seem to think that the American League Championship Series was better than the World Series that year. But that's just me. And it was against the Yankees, and the Red Sox were down 3 games to 1, I believe. And so again, they went to the World Series and they won it for the first time since 1918. And they told Babe Ruth's ghost to take a hike. So anyway, he is also a 3-time Cy Young Award winner, 1997, 1999, and 2000. And that 1999 season was really a magical year for Fenway Park. And it was during the All-Star game, which he really blossomed. It was a great All-Star game. He was also a 1999 Triple Crown winner as well. And usually when we think about the Triple Crown, we think of hitters, but pitchers also won the Triple Crown. And I think Carl Hubble won, I think, 3 Triple Crowns during his career. And so he also was the Major League Baseball wins leader in 1999 and the 5-time ERA leader in 97, 99, 2000, 2002, and 2000, I think 3. Although my handwriting sucks, so that could be an 8 for all I remember. Anyway, um, he's also a 3-time strikeout leader in 99, 2000, and 2002, and his number 45 is retired by the Red Sox. And he made the Hall of Fame in 2015, and he's the second Dominican to be enshrined in Cooperstown, the first being Juan Marichal. So I really wanted an autograph of Pedro Martinez. He's really good to his fans too, and again, he is really kind of more of a celebrity these days as a pitcher or former pitcher. Again, I do remember these cards quite well, the packs. I didn't pick up any of them because I was into vintage at the time, and I still am. This it was 1996, so I stopped collecting modern cards in about 1994, and by 1996, I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention to what was going on in the modern field. So there was one autograph per pack, and you could get either a bronze medallion, which is, let me show you guys real quick if you're not familiar with this set. The bronze medallion, or any kind of medallion, is right here, as you can see. And then the interesting thing about this particular card with Pedro is that he almost always signed right here. For the autographed cards, you could get a bronze medallion, which is said to have been 3,500 signatures, and then a silver, which was 1,000, and then a gold, which would have been 500 signatures. However, with that, there are also short prints, and a regular short print would be 700 bronze, 200 silver, and 100 gold out of the 500. So, unfortunately, what happened was that this was kind of a nightmare to begin with from day one. And then you have players that signed a heck of a lot less than what I just told you. So there is a few notorious short prints. I mean, truly short printed cards in this set. Phil Plantier, he doesn't have any bronze cards, signature cards that I know of, and neither does Jim Thome. Jim Thome, by the way, signed 410 gold and 514 silver, and Greg Maddox, he signed 500 in total, and you have a few others. The most notorious card, though, that is Otis Nixon. From what I've heard, was from Ryan Cracknell, who kind of like broke the story, if you will, that Otis Nixon was traded so often that he had a storage unit that he put all the cards in that he was supposed to send back to the company, put all these cards into a suitcase and left it at the storage unit. He did sign a few. He just left them there. He may have forgotten, and he had some obvious issues going on personally and professionally. This storage unit was sold. All the materials that were in this were sold years later, and the original I was kind of left off the checklist because again nobody had any idea of where these cards were, and then the original owner started selling them for about $15 a piece until he realized just how rare they are. And I believe that this started happening around 2005 or so, and there aren't a whole lot of these cards out there now to begin with. I have no idea exactly how many, maybe 100 or less than that. Again, your guess is as good as mine as how many cards that Otis Nixon actually signed and how many aren't damaged. So a lot of these players actually did damage these cards. I've heard that Tim Salmon damaged at least 100, if not more. And then you have others like Alex Rodriguez, Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa, Mariano Rivera, the Sandman, uh, and let's see, Frank Thomas, again, Carlos Delgado, Brian Hunter, Derek Jeter. Those guys signed a lot fewer cards and sent them in. Other players didn't send in their cards in on time, so they were part of an extended series. And you actually do have a couple of short prints in the extended series as well, and they're really kind of like, and I hate to say this, but they're not well-known household names that for the most part, are in this particular series, which really kind of, I'm not going to say devalues the cards, but it is kind of a problem for collectors because there's a lot of uh, players who really maybe have had a cup of coffee, or they're not really well known. So you don't have a whole lot of Hall of Famers in this set. You do now, but um, it's kind of the luck of the draw who's going to get in the Hall of Fame, you know, 15, 20 years out from 1996. And obviously, everybody I think maybe have known that Derek Jeter would have gotten in the Hall of Fame, but there's no really guarantee who gets in the Hall of Fame these days. So let me go and read a few articles on this. I think it's really interesting too, and I'll meet you on the flip side. This is from the Evansville Press, Evansville, Indiana, October 13th, 1996. There's nothing like the look on an 8-year-old's face when he opens a pack of trading cards and finds one with a genuine autograph on it. It more than makes up for the look on the face of the parent who plunked down a $10 bill for it and then had to fumble around his pocket for tax money instead of getting change. That's why autograph insert cards are becoming the present and future of the sports card industry. Several companies, including Signature Rookies, Upper Deck, and NFL Proline, have had products that guarantee an autographed card in each box or pack. And now, Donruss Leaf Pinnacle and Flair Skybox are getting into the act. An autograph means a player held the card in his hand and it's now yours, said Pinnacle's Lori Goldberg. It puts you one on one with a player, and that's what fans and collectors want, to be close to the player. Just think, oh, Frank Thomas, and blew the dry ink. A total of 240 players participated in Leaf's signature series, but Goldberg and her staff encountered problems from some of them. For example, Todd Hollandsworth, the Los Angeles Dodgers rookie, hurt his elbow and said he couldn't sign because his hand was too sore. The next day, he hit a home run. California Angels outfielder Tim Salmon, tortured by Pinnacle earlier when pitcher photographer Randy Johnson of the Mariners forced him to pose for a picture with a fresh salmon in his hand, spilled shaving cream on 100 cards. They had to be destroyed. Ray Sanchez of the Chicago Cubs said he had a handful of Geronimo Barrera cards in his box and wondered if he was supposed to sign them too. On the other hand, Dodgers outfielder Brett Butler, who was undergoing treatment for throat cancer and then suffered a broken hand upon his return to the Dodgers, phoned to apologize for not being able to sign promptly. Mark Leiter, traded to Montreal, accidentally included an envelope containing $220 Canadian with his signed cards. It was his meal money. But the players participating in the signing program got much more than meal money. The average fee was $10,000, higher for big name players, a far cry from the $5 stake money Topps paid players for their trading card rights in the 1950s. Speaking of meal money, one former All-Star who can't be named for obvious reasons called Pinnacle's offices saying he needed his check so he could feed his family. Or maybe he just wanted to be able to afford to buy them a few packs of the autographed cards. This is from the Courier Post, Camden, New Jersey, October 9th, 1996, by Lewis Kolb. Autographed collectors should be excited to learn about the new Donruss baseball product, the Leaf Signature Series, being released this month. The set includes signed cards of more than 200 Major League players, among them Frank Thomas, Alex Rodriguez, Paul Molitor, and Derek Jeter. Every 4-card pack is guaranteed to contain at least one authentic signature card. The autographed inserts will be distributed in various quantities, likely determined by the popularity of the players. The company says the cards will be foil stamped with either gold, 500, silver 1000, or bronze 3750, etching corresponding to production levels for each issue. The Leaf Signature Series will carry a suggested retail price of $9.99 per pack, besides the autographed cards, which were witnessed and accompanied by a notarized affidavit ensuring authenticity. The set is comprised of 100 regular issue and parallel press proof gold cards. So this appears to be the very beginning of the autographed craze, and a lot of collectors have said that their autographs over the years have faded, and that maybe because of the Sharpies themselves, or what the player was using to sign the autographs, really have not held up over time. And I've actually heard that the not the on-card signature or the on-card auto, but the sticker auto have not held up really at all. And I probably would suggest that if you're going to collect this stuff, to keep it stored in a dark area, um, somewhere there's not a whole lot of light that is going to affect the autograph, but then also that you probably should do a lot of homework too. If you're not actually collecting, where the heck did I put this card? Um, oh, sorry guys. I can't. Where did I? Oh, here we go. Technical difficulties here. What can I say? Happens to everybody. If you're actually going to collect cards like this, that's one thing. But if you're going to collect regular autographed cards on, it's a regular cards, or unfortunately, I don't have any other autographed cards here with me. But if you're actually going to go out and get an autographed card, resale, it could be a little bit different. Again, if you're going through the mail, getting this stuff, you really need to do your homework on the signatures and what a player could sign. And I actually did a fairly lengthy article on this, and I really found some very interesting things through my investigation into the ball players and the generations of ball players that signed. And um, what I found was that there were a generation of ball players, mainly the dead ball era players, who didn't sign really a lot of cards to begin with. They didn't understand why somebody would want their signature. Those guys, they may have signed a few, say, T206s here and there, up through, say, your 1941 play ball. Your pre-World War II ball players really didn't sign a whole lot. When you're going to purchase a vintage autograph on a vintage card, there are certain things that you might want to consider first before you actually make that purchase. And one of them is the player's signing habits and what the player could sign. And for example, this player right here, this is Wally Berger, and it's a 1934 36 Diamond Stars. And so Wally Berger actually lived long enough to sign not just throughout his career, but into the 1980s. And this is actually more recent autograph. It's not during his playing career, and it's from a ballpoint pen. And usually, what I do is when I'm looking at a card that I think may have been signed by a ballpoint pen, I'm going to look at it through a microscope, and there's going to be telltale signs that actually occurred, and the ballpoint pen itself is going to leave something of a small indentation while the player is signing his name. And Wally Berger here, he was actually a really great ball player. So I actually do really enjoy the artwork on this particular set. Now, there's another card here that was signed by the player during his playing career. And this is Oscar Mello. And actually, I did a little bit of in-depth, detailed research on him as a player because I believe, or it's believed that he may have had Bright's disease at some point during his early career, and he he got the name spinach because he ate a lot of spinach, and it's believed that the vitamin K in the spinach helped him to recover from Bright's disease, which is usually a very fatal disease if that's in fact what he had. And I'm not sure that that's entirely what he had, but he almost died. So anyway, the one way you can tell a vintage autograph is that most of them I think were signed through fountain pen, and that's going to leave a very different mark than a ballpoint pen back in the 1930s was a pretty rare thing. Ballpoint pens tend to leak. They go back to 1888, but I don't think that a whole lot of people were actually using ballpoint pens up until maybe post World War II. So for the most part, he actually passed away in 1966, I believe, or 63. Yeah, I think it's 1963. So he did have a long enough time to sign. I don't know how many signatures he did sign. This again, there's going to be some telltale signs of a fountain pen, and one of them is an inconsistent flow of the ink. And that also kind of happened too with early ballpoint pens. So that's the one thing that you might want to check out, and definitely check out the stuff under a microscope too. And I did do a pretty lengthy article on fountain pens and pens and signatures and the players themselves. And then there's another instance too where you have a lot of ball players who died early or young. And in this case right here, this is Vern Stevens, and I believe he ended up passing away from a heart attack, 47 or 48. Uh, it was it was too bad, but there was only a short period of time or a window of time for him to have signed, and he is a kind of a difficult signer. And some ball players, even if they're living, they're extremely difficult signers. And in his case, he I think he passed away in 1968. So between like say 1944 and 1968, this is a ballpoint signature as well. And again, he probably should be in the Hall of Fame. He's got the numbers for it, and it's just a matter of time, I think, before he does get in the Hall. He actually was up for Cooperstown consideration several years ago. So there's actually a lot more to this. I don't want to get too bogged down. So I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you guys that not only do you have to study the players and their signing habits, but it's also something that the grading companies have to do a better job on as well, and even the players. So there's a lot of players that really they sign cat scratches. They do an awful job in autographing their cards, and it's a really disservice to the collector, and really kind of it shows laziness, I think, on the part of the ball player to do this, and it makes it more difficult for the collector overall to determine whether or not it's a legitimate signature and it's something that can be forged. Now, there was a forgery scandal several years ago. They don't know when it started or when it stopped, but it was pretty elaborate, and it happened with T206, the Bowmans and play balls, especially from say your 1900s, obviously T206, but then your 1933, 34 Gaudis and your play ball and your early Bowmans, where in the case of the T206, you had these forgers who were buying up a lot of T206s, forging the cards, and sending them in for grading, and they would pass. And then they'd go back and you'd find them up at auctions, and the auction houses weren't really checking this stuff. What I think was kind of interesting is that they really weren't players that were known to have any autographs during their careers, especially their lifetime. There's a few cases where a player was not known to have a autograph at all, especially on a card. So if you think about this, autographs from dead ball era players on cards is extremely rare. Autographs on a card from post World War II, or sorry, pre World War II, is pretty difficult to come across. Again, this card right here, and then a lot of these players usually would pass away in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, and there's a few players who actually made it to, like, say, 1980, like Rube Marquard. What I thought was really interesting here was that the forger, or the forgers, there's probably more than one, were using index cards of these dead ball era players to have as their practice, right? So because these players were not signing cards, they're very rare to begin with, and so they were never caught. In fact, we don't know how many of these signatures or these cards are out there from these players. And then that's why I'm telling you guys, it's usually not your Ted Williams, although Ted Williams does have a lot of forged autographs, and it was from his son. That's another story altogether. But your Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio's, those big name players, they're not the ones that you really have to worry about. I mean, of course, Mickey Mantle too, but it's in this case, it's your low level ball players that are, again, worth the most, or they're the most rare, I should say. What I think was really interesting about this particular case was that the forgers were targeting specific collectors who were dealing with the dead ball era players, their autographs. If you're specializing in this field, you should know who was able to sign and who signed and who didn't. And if you have players that don't have or are not known to have signed anything, that should have raised red flags, not just for the collector, but for the autograph authenticator as well. Guys like James Spence and Beckett and PSA and eBay and a few of these auction houses didn't do their homework. They didn't do their research. And I think that's a real shame. Again, if you're not sure about what a player's autograph should look like, walk away, or at least get a second opinion, because, again, people's signing habits change over time. Say Cliff Chambers, pitcher of the Pirates, who ended up having a stroke. Now, I have seen a few of his autographs in the past, and they are very difficult to determine if they're legitimate or not, but I can't really tell. Anybody could actually have signed this stuff and sent it in to the grading company, and it's really illegible. How they figure that it's Cliff Chambers' autograph is beyond me. But usually, I think what the companies are supposed to do is have a list of different autographs, or a catalog, if you will. I think maybe some autographs are really kind of taken with a grain of salt, to tell you the truth, or just kind of like stick their finger in the air and see which way the wind blows to determine whether or not it's legit. And then again, you don't know how many hours or days are spent determining whether or not the card or the autograph is legitimate. So, again, guys. this is a subject that you really needed to do your homework on before you make that purchase. See whether or not the player could have signed and what he could have signed. Again, the hobby is really fun. I really enjoy it, but it does come with it a lot of research and a lot of education, so you don't end up, having your money taken from you. You work very hard for your money, so the least you can do is do some research on what you are purchasing. So with that, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it as always. If you have any comments on this, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say as always. And until the next time, I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye. Ray Sanchez of the Chicago Cubs said he had a handful of Geronimo Barrera cards in his box and wondered if he was supposed to sign them too. Oh my God. All right, I'm going to try that again. Mark Leiter, traded to Montreal, accidentally included an envelope containing $220 Canadian with his signed cards. It was his meal money. Oh my God. What the what the hell?